Guys, this is the Extra Point crew, and today we have a special guest with us. We got Tullahoma High School head coach John Olive joining us. So, Coach, I appreciate you swinging by and talking to us for a little bit.
You're welcome.
You had a very interesting year, a very good year. I do want to kick things off with talking about the difficulty of the last two seasons. Obviously, you've been a coach for around 25 years. Like I said, I'm certain that this is the first time you've went 2 years without winning a game. How did that affect you as a coach? Talk about that and how it made you approach your coaching.
Well, it definitely makes you question everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you have thought that you were correct and right on, it makes you question it, whether it comes from trying to motivate to schemes to even the amount of time. And I'm talking about from the off season all the way around through the summertime, through the season. You question, and to try to make it where everybody understands the amount of frustration is that you have to take it and you have to put it into your field, into your business. And as I was telling one of my friends, it'd be you take it and you set it in your business, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a car dealer, or whether you're a real estate person. But let's say you're a real estate person and you go for 24 straight months without closing a deal.
Yeah.
You still have your job. You still work at it just as hard as you've ever worked. You may even work at it harder.
Yeah.
But you still haven't been able to close the deal.
Yeah.
You've had some things that you maintained and so forth, but you've not closed that deal. And that's kind of the way it was for us, is that you have coaches, you have players that are all working just as hard, but you're not able to close the deal on a Friday night. And so, the first year, it did not take us by surprise. We saw it coming.
Yeah.
We knew that there was going to be a talent level drop off. And it doesn't mean that we didn't have some players that were talented. It just, we didn't have enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyway, I thought, and I'll go back to 2015. We go to Giles County. We're 0-9. They're a football team that's going into the playoffs. In fact, they're going to play a couple of rounds into the playoffs. Everybody in our region last year won the first round game, and they ended up having to play each other in the second and third rounds. And we're sitting there knowing that we're at the end of that season, and everybody's thinking, what else is out there? Basketball's coming, or we start baseball in 3 weeks, or whatever. And we talked about it as a team. Oh, we don't want to play this as our last game of 2015, or we're going to play it as if we're looking for our first win to celebrate. And I think anybody that was at that game or watches that videotape knows that our young men played their hearts out that night. We weren't good enough to beat them.
Yeah.
We could scare them, but that was about it.
Yeah.
And so, to me, that spoke volumes, though, that the coaching staff and the players, even though we were 0-20 at that time, going all the way back to the playoffs of 14, we were still trying to get that first win. We played to get the first win, not to finish out an 0-10 season.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if I've answered your question, but the gist of it is, when somebody said to me, well, Coach, that was a little ugly the other night, but I'm glad you came back to win or whatnot. I will not ever take wins for granted again.
I understand.
And so therefore, but it does, and it makes it special when you see other programs that are struggling, I can't tell you how many notes, how many emails, phone calls, etc., that I got the week following us beating Shelbyville this year,
Okay.
from coaches all across the state, and how much it meant. And I tried to reach back to each one of them to just say thank you, appreciate it. One of them has been a very successful coach. He's now semi-retired, and he shared with me that had happened to him during his career. And so when I see other programs that are struggling and they finally get that first win, I hope that I take time out to contact some young coach or whatnot and say, hey, hang in there.
Okay, awesome. Zach, you want to take the next question?
Well, obviously you guys have improved this year, 4-4 on the season. But in the preseason, we talked about this during the spring, that there was just this whole different atmosphere surrounding this team. It was a lot more lively, a lot more fun. What gave it away that this was going to be a different year for Tullahoma football? Because it just seemed like that was going to be the mantra heading into this season.
Well, there's several things. Number one, we had a lot of juniors who had played 2 years, as we had played freshmen for 2 straight years. We had some sophomores that had already played as freshmen. So we had a lot of players coming back that had already been on the field of competition. And so there's some confidence there. We knew in the weight room we were getting stronger. We knew that overall we were getting faster as a team. And this team works really hard. They worked hard. We have to go back to 2011, the last time we had a football team in the summertime that worked as hard as this football team did.
Wow.
And we're not as talented as the team in 2011. But as far as that attitude and that effort that you saw and the buzz about it, our thing is now, as we try to finish out this year, is can we move from being an average team and become a good team and carry that with us all the way through the off season?
Let's also talk about your most recent win over Lawrence County. This has been a monkey of sorts kind of on you guys' back. Y'all been plagued by them the last couple of years. Also, this is your first region win this year, which is also great. Talk about having that monkey off your back. Talk about having that first region win.
Well, Lawrence County, for years we beat them. And on some years when they had some really good football teams, we were able to beat them, and most of the time beat them pretty good. And I don't know, there were some years that we were in a 10-team region, and I don't remember if we played them during that time period, but we had either won 17 in a row or 19 in a row against them until 2012. And in 2012, we beat Shelbyville to clinch at least a home field in the playoffs with a team that we weren't sure could get to the playoffs. They actually played over their heads. And boy, we just showed up and went through the motions against Lawrence County on that night. I can't remember what all happened, but I remember it being a weird night. We had a deep snapper that had not made a bad snap all year long, snaps 2 over the punter's head. And, excuse me, and so we got beat, I don't remember, 27-19, 27-20, something like that. The next year, they were just a whole lot better than us. And kind of like in 09, they beat us in 09. I remember down there in that monsoon taking a beating from them that night, and they had a really good football team. The thing, we go down there in 2014, and we're probably the better team that night. We make 7 turnovers, and one of them, I remember Cole Potter still, he's running into the end zone, and the ball squirts out the back of his arm. And so, it was one of those nights, and until the 7th turnover, we still had a chance to beat them. And then 2015, they beat us right after we had scored with 30 seconds or so to go in the game. That they hit a wheel route against us to beat us. And then last year, 2016, they we couldn't stop them. We couldn't stop them at all, and couldn't outscore them. They outscored us. That probably beat us 50-something to 20-something. I just remember that, so I like Coach Marston. He and I are probably the two longest tenured coaches in our region, and so forth. And he does a great job of getting his young men ready to play Tullahoma. I don't know why Lawrence County dislikes Tullahoma so much, but it goes back before I ever came here. Because before they instituted the fight rule that you had to miss the next ball game, I was told that there would always be a fight. In my first couple of years here, there was always a fight in the Lawrence County game with somebody. And so anyway, there is a strong dislike over there, and I may have hurt their feelings once upon a time when I was at a region meeting, and that's back when we were in that 10-team region. And I said, well, Lawrence County just needs to go on down to Alabama. They're closer to Alabama than anybody else in this region. And so anyway.
Well, y'all battled back on Friday night. I kept up with the score, via Zach's Twitter. But the thing that's kind of plagued you guys all season, and you kind of said earlier about being this team that kind of moves on to kind of keep progressing, that moves into 2018, you kind of had a tale of two halves. First half, you're almost like a diesel engine of sorts. It takes you a while to get warmed up, but once you have, you put some really impressive second halves together. Talk about putting the challenge of putting two halves together, and do you hope to get this kind of taken care of before the season wraps up?
And to follow up on that question, have you ever been around a team like this that struggled so much in the first half and then just plays lights out in the second half, like you guys seemingly do?
I don't think, not as much. We've been around teams that were slow starting before, but not like this. I mean, very first ball game of the year, it was the first half that we exploded, and and jumped all over them and so forth. And then we couldn't, we got too conservative in the second half trying to run clock out, and we were having problems with personnel between the cramps and injuries and so forth. We were struggling. So the only other time that we played well in the first half is Lincoln County. And Lincoln County, we played pretty well. And we played pretty well against Marshall County. But again, we started slow. It's just we started playing well in the second quarter. But for the most part, we seem to find ourselves down 14-0, 21-0, 21-7. And then we're able to get in gear. And if I knew exactly why that was, I don't know. I do know that these young men don't quit. And sometimes we're not able to battle back. Sometimes we are. And I think that's what makes us an average team right now. If we could figure out, and I don't know if we don't handle the pressure in the first half. I don't know if we're just not up to game speed, because if it was the same issue every time, it'd be a little bit simpler to solve, but it's not the same issue every time. And so, and for whatever be the reason, you can, for instance, Franklin County, we script the first plays of the game, and Amari was a major part to either 5 or 6 of those first 9 plays. And he goes out on the opening kickoff. So all of a sudden, plays that we had put in there to try to utilize his abilities, now I've got Bryson Corn wearing a cast on his hand, and us trying to take him and leak him out of the backfield and throw him the football is not going to be real successful. And so as a coach and as players, we kind of flounder there in that first half against Franklin County because we've lost a major cog and we don't have Bryson Corn back ready yet. He's out there playing with a cast that makes it where he's one-handed, basically, one-armed. So sometimes you look at it and you say, well, there's a good reason for it. Spring Hill, our defense may have played its best ball game against Spring Hill. We played against an outstanding running back, Smith. We're in that game until we fumble a punt right there before halftime. And don't know if we'd have stayed in it because we were really struggling that night because they had 2 defensive linemen we couldn't block.
Yeah.
We just had no answers to get those 2 guys blocked. And we could double one of them, but we couldn't double both of them.
Yeah.
And so there's some things that you look at and say, well, that's what caused that situation. But like the other night and at Coffee County, I can't tell you why we just came out and we're sluggish on defense and we're sluggish on offense. And then all of a sudden, we come back in the second half. Somebody asked me, well, what was the magic formula at halftime? The magic formula was nothing but saying, guys, you're good enough to make this happen, make a comeback here, but you got to start tackling because we're in the right position the vast majority of the time. In the first half, we're just not tackling. And offensively, we were moving the ball, we just weren't finishing the drives. And so, anyway, second half, we do those 2 things, and lo and behold, we're fortunate enough to come back and win.
You want to take the next question?
Well, you brought up Amari in the Franklin County game, so I want to ask about the addition of having both the Burks brothers, Kobe and Amari, on this team this year. They joined the team during the summer. But not only from their playmaker ability, they bring a leadership factor to them, don't they? Coming from Whiteman High School and having previously notching wins over there in Rutherford County.
Right, Amari, obviously played in an outstanding football program, one of the top programs in our state, and I've really questioned myself whether I should be talking to our kids about trying to get to the second season, about playoffs and stuff. We don't seem to handle those games very well. And so I get to Monday morning quarterbacking and so forth. Amari's the only one we've got on our football team that's ever played in the playoffs. And so he brings that. He brings a competition to us that we had not had. Our good teams, I can tell you when we don't have a good team because we got great competition. Just to get on the field, there's great competition. Amari has been in an environment where there's great competition, that if you're having a bad day in practice and you get pulled to the second team and the guy that's behind you, you may never get your job back because that's all they're waiting on is an opportunity to play. And so Amari brings that to us. Kobe was just a baseball player at Blackman. In fact, Coach Watson at Blackman called me one night and said, he said, I knew Amari would be pretty good, but he said, the one that blows my mind is Kobe. He didn't even play for us up here. And both of them, though, very good athletes. Amari, super fast and quick, very strong, both of them are. But I think Kobe showed some signs of what makes him so unique. The 2-point play that we used against Lawrence County and the touchdown before. We're running a speed sweep with Kobe, and the play is designed to go outside, and they over pursue. He sees a hole, almost has to knock one of our offensive linemen down because the lineman hasn't seen the hole. He's still running to get to the outside.
Yeah.
And, when he cuts and basically walks into the end zone, and on the very next play, we run a reverse with Kobe where he's got the option to run or pass it against Coffee County. He ran it in for the touchdown when we used it there inside the 10 against them. And then against Lawrence County, he's got it. There's somebody moving toward Nick. There's one coming toward him, and he waits until both of them commits to him, and then he throws a touch pass. It's not a rocket shot or anything. It's just a little flick. And with the adrenaline going, that a lot of people, that would have been just a rocket coming out of there. He's just a cool customer. And so anyway, that's what they actually bring to us on the field. They brought to us 2 athletes that added to our depth tremendously. And right off the bat, we were without Matthew Meadows, our leading returning receiver, who's just now returned in the last week or two, as he had off-season surgery from a baseball injury. And then we've been without John Moore for a good part of the season because of sickness. And so that would have been devastating if those two are not here. Bryson breaking his hand in the first ball game would have been devastating. And we were getting close from an athletic standpoint. Those two helped get us over the top. And so hopefully, Amari, he's going to have opportunities to go play on the next level. Kobe will go play baseball for us, but when he comes back, hopefully going into his senior year, he'll be a step faster, and he's already a good football player.
We're talking about Kobe he'll be a senior next year,
Yes,
and then of course we have Bryson Corn that's going to be coming back next year. If you want to talk about some of the depth that we can expect for next year, and even if you want to also highlight some improved players that you've seen kind of step it up a notch this year.
Well, we're battling to get better, and we're going to lose 8 seniors. One of them's our kicker, Chase Fowler, who we've already lost as he had to have some surgery done. So there's 7 seniors playing right now. The majority of those seniors are in the line. They're in the trenches. And the majority of them are players that have hung around waiting on their opportunity to get a chance to play. And for the most part, they battle like crazy. They're not the most athletic bunch. They're for sure not the biggest bunch. Our middle school probably is larger than our high school front right now. And middle school is beyond average, but it's still that drastic. But they'll battle. They'll battle with everything they got. So when we look toward next year, we know that we're going to lose Nick Barstead, who's had an outstanding year at quarterback, over and beyond anything that I had dreamed of him being able to do. He's had just fantastic year. And then Amari, who's a major part of the offense, whether he's got football or if he's a decoy. He draws a lot of attention right now. And then we're going to lose some others, Matt Meadows, but we basically have played this year without Matthew. It's nice to have him back. He showed against Nolensville. When Nick started scrambling, he broke up the sideline like a veteran receiver would do. And then he's got great speed. He's a great route runner. He was probably the best route runner we had. So anyway, with all that said, we've got a ton of players coming back next year in the junior class and the sophomore classes. We've not used the freshmen very much this year. There's a couple of them now that I think have made it to the kickoff team. But we have primarily gone this entire season without using freshmen, which is the first time we've been able to do that in 2 years.
Wow.
And, we'll have players coming back at a lot of positions. Obviously, we've got to fill the quarterback position on the offensive side of the ball. Amari's a two-way starter. He's a returner. But, we've probably got people in place that can replace him. Might not be as fast or as good, but they may be as fast as we've talked about it already as coaches, that we've got to knock another 1/10 to a 1/10 and a half off our 40 times. And if we can do that, we're going to be a pretty good football team next year. We got to find some linemen that will get in there and battle and hopefully have a few linemen that can start dominating, because that's what you have to get up onto what I call the good level, good to the elite level. You got to have some linemen up there that can make some things happen. And when I say linemen, I'm talking linebackers, linemen,
Yeah.
tight end, excuse me, that kind of thing.
Okay. That's something that you feel like you coach into them, that wanting to battle. Is that something you feel like that 2 years of kind of having to deal with that kind of adversity kind of instilled into them, that they're going to have to fight for every game?
I think that the biggest thing that happens to you in those 2 years when you're going over is you worry about confidence. Because when something goes bad, you have a tendency to say, here we go. And so this has been a year of transitioning from that, that when something bad happens, that you don't just think, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
And again, I'll go back to that 2015 team down at Giles County. We're in that ball game that night, and I think Chase threw an interception, if I remember right, and then they immediately take it down the field to score, and that just changes the ball game for the rest of that was in the third quarter and so forth. But that changed it from that time on, because it becomes a mental thing. And I've read a couple of books here in these 2 weeks that we've had off, and one of them was a book about World War II and the mindset of what happens in battle.
Yeah.
And not that I want to equate sports to battle, but it still comes down to psychological. And that whether it's dropping leaflets saying you need to run for the hills because we're getting ready to incinerate your city, to somebody like George Patton's movies of the Battle of the Bulge and stuff, when you read about that, you realize that it's the momentum. You get momentum going, it's amazing what ordinary people all of a sudden are able to do. And so I think that's one of the biggest things you battle in sports is the lack of confidence, and that you're fragile when you've been beaten time after time after time. I think the biggest thing that we're accomplishing this year is that, hey, we're down 22-7. Hey, we're down whatever. We still got a chance. We still got a chance to do this. And as they come back and do those type things, then next year they know they've done it before. They know they can do it. And I don't know how many years that we've played here at Tullahoma where we're not great, but we're good. And things are not going well for us on a night, and all of a sudden we still find a way to win the football game. And it's because our kids believe they're supposed to win. Well, we've lost that right now. Our kids are searching for that identity. And you can go to almost any good program. And over the years, anybody that's been a long time watcher of the real good programs, whether it be Maryville, Oakland, Blackman of recent time, I guarantee you there are nights when they shouldn't have won. And they still win.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I wanted to hit on whenever you're down at these halves, whenever you got a playmaker like Nick taking the snaps, not only from a leadership perspective that he might have, but has the ability to extend plays and make things happen downfield. And from a coach's perspective, do you also have to kind of hold your breath and while he's doing these and holding that? I'll just leave it at that. It's like,
well, one of the things that Nick's always been able to do is to create. Now, up until this year, you worried about was he creating for you, or is he creating an opportunity for your opponent? And I don't mean that super negative against Nick, but I think he had completed like 43% of his passes going into this year. May have had more interceptions than he did touchdowns. And when you throw JV games in there with that, he could make a great play. And then sometime during the game, he's trying to create. He's trying to get that, just get it in there, because he's very confident that he can do that. And anyway, the defense ends up intercepting the ball. To me, the biggest thing that Nick Barstead, he's always been a very good decision maker as far as reading the option part of the offense. he understands it more this year than I think ever before. He sees things that he had not seen before. He's allowed to throw a pass out there. I think against Lawrence County, he actually had checked off to a pass. The two receivers missed the check off. As they've got their own little signals and stuff that they make to each other, we found that that'd be a lot easier than us as coaches creating the signals. And we give Nick the freedom to do things like that. But that, you know, he's completing 60-something% of his passes right now. He's, I don't know, 1,600, almost 1,700 yards. And his touchdown to interception ratio is really, really good. I don't know what it is, but he's only, I think, got 4 interceptions on the year. He hasn't fumbled the ball, whereas in the past that had been something. But I think he just makes heady plays for us and has played, like I said, outstanding.
I do want to ask a final question. I don't know if this is okay. This is you're in a particular point in the season. You're almost finished, but you're not there yet. Talk about keeping the players focused, because I know some of them are getting ready to play basketball or do other things. Keeping them focused. How does that work?
Well, when we ended up Friday night, we told them, you know, don't do anything football-wise for the next 5 days.
Yeah.
Just no running. No thinking about football. Don't go home and watch video of football. Just we need regenerating. We need to redo and so forth. As I was getting worried that we were mentally and emotionally and physically, I know we were really beaten up here, and everybody is at this time of the year.
Yeah.
But when you have undersized linemen and they're beaten up, that's a little bit different than those bigger boys and so forth that can still move and stuff. So we wanted, you know, this break comes in at a time where we felt like, in fact, I'd like to have it the week before.
Yeah.
You know, like perfect world, because we needed it then. So now we still have a small hope. Not much of a hope. We got a small hope that we can still sneak into the playoffs. Anytime you get in the playoffs, the second season's exciting.
Yeah.
It's not real exciting maybe if you got to go play Maryville in the first round.
Yeah.
But, you know, against most people, you feel like, okay, we may not be as good as they are, but they're not head and shoulders above us, and you can at least feel like, you know, if they give you a break or two here or there, you got a chance to pull the upset off. I think our region is a pretty strong region from top to bottom. Last year, all 4 teams won. I think the year before that, 3 out of the 4 won. We feel like, I think Spring Hill was 4th place last year in our region, and they played to the quarterfinals. Marshall County finally put them out. You know, I think, you know, so you always keep that there. At the same time, as I said earlier, I'm not sure we handled that very well.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about going into Nolensville game that, hey, you know, we win this week and next week, we're in the playoffs. We didn't play very good.
Yeah.
And in fact, we played like deer staring into the headlights. And you know, as we look at just my challenge to them will be set the foundation for next year.
Gotcha.
Let's turn this corner. Let's get out of being an average team. Let's start doing the things that make us start moving toward becoming a good team. And, you know, for the most part, this has been an enjoyable year. It's a little frustrating when you look back at some opportunities that you felt like we had. But you know what? After going 0-20, you don't look back at them very long, because you realize that this group has moved us on down the road. We've been below average for 2 years. We have finally climbed back up to being average, and that's what we were talking to them about in the preseason. Let's climb back up to being an average football team. And then once we become an average football team, then we want to make that climb. I wanted to make it during this season. We still might. we win these last 2 ball games, we might be moving toward becoming a good team instead of being an average team.
Good deal. Anything?
Nope.
Coach, can't say thank you enough. I'd almost like to have you for a separate segment where we can talk college football. But we appreciate it. 2 more games left. Best of luck to you and your team going on through the
Thank you.
season.
Thank you, Coach. Enjoy the bye week.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.